Hello there, welcome to a new episode and the return of Hit or Miss. If you are new to the series, I cover boxing video games and pit them against previous entries in the series. I have created a pound for pound list, and at the end of each review, I decide whether the game being covered is a hit and becomes a boxing video game champion, or makes it on the pound for pound list, or if the game is a miss and doesn't even make the list at all. Our current boxing video game champion was crowned in the previous episode of Hit or Miss when Fight Night 2004 got a split decision against the former champion Victorious Boxer's Ippo's Road to Glory. Make sure to check out the series in the card above. HBO Boxing was developed by HBO Boxing was developed by Osiris Studios and published by Acclaim Entertainment. Acclaim had previously published another boxing video game in George Foreman's KO Boxing, which we covered in Hit or Miss Micro, so be sure to check that out. HBO Boxing was released on the PlayStation in the year 2000 and was met with unfavorable reviews. PSM Magazine gave HBO Boxing a 5 out of 10 due to the poor camera angle and the combinations relegating the game to a button masher. But I'm here to tell you that HBO Boxing is much more than that. I want to start with visuals and presentation. HBO Boxing was released only a month after Knockout Kings 2001, and when compared to the boxing game it was directly competing with at the time, it's hard to dismiss the fact that this game looks significantly worse. Graphics wise, it can barely compete with the previous entry of Knockout Kings, which was released a year prior. Sound design is not good either. The commentary is decent when it's there, and the sound of punches and grunts are also decent, but the sound cuts out and is absent for short periods of time. Also, when fighting in a gym opposed to a venue, all you will hear is this. This is really annoying considering how many fights you have to go through in this empty gym to progress your career in career mode. HBO Boxing has a decent amount of animations. It's good to see heavier fighters such as George Foreman have more impactful animations opposed to Roy Jones, who is quicker and a sleek fighter. HBO Boxing has a very good roster of licensed fighters and venues. You also have a good amount of customization options for each bout. Talking about customization, the Creative Fighter was much better than I thought it would be. You have a good selection of customization options, and the way you choose how your fighter looks is by choosing a first and second heritage, and you dictate which heritage you want your fighter to look like more. It pretty much boils down to if you want to look more like your first dad or your second dad. The career mode is the best and worst part of this game. It is extremely unforgiving because you have to fight the same fighters repeatedly until you can boost your stats to get an edge on them. I like that you are able to hire a manager, trainer, and cutman, with each providing an influence based on their ability level. The negotiation of fights is very simple, but you get some wacky responses sometimes when trying to book a fight with a fighter higher ranking than you. What I really enjoy about the career mode, you are forced to actually know your fighter's strengths and weaknesses and boost stats based on your previous results. If you don't, you will be stuck in an endless loop of fighting the same fighters until you learn your lesson. Just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying the video, don't forget to like, let me know what you think of HBO Boxing in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date with Hit or Miss. Finally, let's talk about gameplay. I can see how this would be a game a lot of people would pick up, get frustrated and put down and never play it again. I felt this way when I first played it months ago. I would come back to it here and there because I felt like there was more to this game, and I was right. It's not the best boxing game, that's for sure. It can even be considered amongst one of the worst to some people, but when you sit down and take your time to figure out what works for your specific fighter and you learn the confusing controls, the game can be quite addicting. In HBO Boxing, you control one hand at a time and press L1 to toggle and switch to the other hand, and you have to learn how to throw punches while changing what hand is being used to land combinations. You can also throw a combination that each fighter has by pressing 2 buttons at once, or you can throw your special punch by pressing square and triangle at the same time. Don't get me wrong, the game can definitely become a button masher and you may find success doing so in some fights, but others definitely require you to pick your shots and know when to block and weave. Something the game does really well is letting you know the effects of the fight during and in between rounds. If you cut your opponent, the game will let you know. If your opponent is cocky, the game will let you know. If a cut or wound has healed, you will find out in between rounds. I enjoy this a lot because it makes me feel like what I am doing not only affects the scorecards but also has a side effect on my opponent that I could take advantage of in the fight. Hell, while playing I even saw that my opponent broke his arm. I didn't see it affect the CPU much, but just seeing that message surprised me and amped me up to be more aggressive. Did HBO Boxing do enough to take down the current boxing video game champion? If this were an actual fight, Fight Night 2004 would stop HBO Boxing in the early rounds. But this game had me rethinking the reviews that I've read for it. I personally like HBO Boxing, and I will put it at the number 10 spot of the pound for pound list. But now, it's time to find out who our next contender is. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you for next week's video. Take care.